Welcome! I'm excited that you're here to check out the Animal Rescue Data Management Excel spreadsheet that I've developed after several requests. Before we jump into the spreadsheet, I want to share a little bit about myself. As you can see, I had 3 crazy pups and 1 spunky cat that will forever own my heart. Unfortunately, 2 of my pups have gone to the Rainbow Bridge, so now our home is filled with just 1 dog, which is the beautiful black lab you see in the middle, and my cat, pictured below. But even though they're physically gone, they'll never be forgotten in our home. Because of my passion for animals, I decided to become a board member with a local animal rescue. While I was part of the board, I received a request that they badly needed some way to organize their data without spending an arm and a leg for a database system. As most rescue organizations understand, having extra money to spend on data systems just usually isn't there. So I took the knowledge from my previous 10 years of nonprofit experience and my love for Excel and created the spreadsheet that we're about to dive into. So enough about me. Let's take a look at this spreadsheet. So the first tab is an instructions tab. In the general section, it walks you through how to get started. The first thing you'll want to do is save a copy of this spreadsheet. That way, in case anything happens, you always have a blank copy that you can start fresh with. At the end of the year, you can start a new version of this spreadsheet with a blank one you saved originally and get started on next year's stats. This is a one-time investment that will last forever. So to get started, in line 2, you're going to enter the year and make sure you enter it as 4 digits. That's important for several of the formulas throughout this spreadsheet. And then in line 3, you'll enter the name of your rescue. So I'm just going to use the example of Rescue Forever. And then finally, there will also be a link back to this video, so that if you have any questions about the spreadsheet, you should start by coming back here first and see if you can get your question answered. Otherwise, you can reach out to me in the email that I listed below if you have questions about something not working right. At the bottom here in the links box, you can easily navigate to any of the tabs within the spreadsheet. I also include a brief description of what each tab is designed to do for a quick reference point. The first data entry tab is the Animals tab. I've entered some dummy data into this version so that I can show how everything works together. For an example though, we're going to drop down to the bottom here and enter in some new information. The first thing you should notice is that you can only click on cells that you can enter data into. The rest have been locked to avoid any accidents to the formulas and ensure that they continue working correctly. So we're going to take a minute and fill out a line. So we're going to start with Madison is a dog in our facility, and we're going to mark that her intake date was December 31st, 2020. So now for the spay and neuter column, you should only enter yes here if your organization actually spayed or neutered the animal in the facility. So these are drop-down menus, so I'm going to select yes for Madison. So the same thing goes here for the medical expenses. You should only be including medical expenses that you're actually paying out to care for the animal. So for Madison, we'll put in $150. Next, you're going to select where the animal is going to be housed. So either in your shelter or in a foster home. Be sure not to go back and change those intake columns after they exit. They should stay yes even after the animal leaves your facility. And we'll go into more detail about why that's important when we get to the monthly data tabs. So then you can either select yes or no for each of the following of where the animal came from for intake. So I'm going to mark Madison as a stray, and I'll put all of the rest of these under intake as no. And then finally, under the live outcomes, you can either just leave them blank, the live and the other, until they've left your facility, or you can go ahead and put no's in here for all of them now, because obviously all of them except for one is going to need a no at some point. So we're going to go ahead and fill all those in. And then whenever the animal does exit the facility in either a live or another outcome, you'll enter that exit date under the exit date column. So that's it for the Animals tab. Let's move to the Volunteers tab. So for this one, all you have to do is enter their name, the date they volunteered, and the number of hours that they volunteered for. So the monthly and the annual stats tabs are going to unduplicate the volunteer names. So if you have two people with the same name, which I have an example here of Nick J and Nick P, be sure to either add their last name, the first initial of their last name, or any way that it would be able to differentiate between the two. That way the stats page basically knows that they're separate people. It doesn't matter if they have uppercase or lowercase. The only thing that matters is that the letters are somewhat different. So next we're going to take a look at the board tracking tab. So again, all you have to do here is enter the name, the date they volunteered, the number of hours they volunteered, and if they were able to raise any money or in-kind donations. So you can see in this example that we have pretty much everybody coming in on the same day, February 15th, and that they volunteered for 3 hours each. So when I created this report, I envisioned that this would be a way that you'd be able to track board meetings. That way you can truly count all of the hours that the board members are donating. And also if they brought any donations to the meeting, you can add that to the respective columns as well. And another example is down here on April 7th. You'll notice that John didn't actually volunteer any hours. It looks like he just dropped by with a bunch of donations for the shelter. So just be sure to have the donor determine what the value is of the in-kind, and then you can enter that here. And the difference between these is you want to make sure that you only enter money, like physical money that's donated under the money raised column, and then the in-kind is any products or items that are donated to the shelter. And like I said before, make sure you have the donor determine what the value is. So that way, between all these columns, you're able to track anything related to how the board members are contributing to the organization. And this is great information that can be used in grant applications that can show how you have an active board. So finally, this last data entry tab is for event tracking. This can be used any way you see fit. The shelter I volunteered with used it for all the events that took place, including adoption events, volunteer appreciation, volunteer recruitment, shelter cleanup days, etc. The same rules as with the board tab. If you collected any money at your events, add that to the money raised column. And if any items were donated, find out what the donor determined the value to be and enter that here as well. So now, once you've entered all the data into those 4 data entry tabs throughout the year, these are the reporting tabs. So the reporting tabs can be instrumental in providing data needed for grant applications. The first one we have here is a monthly stats report. These boxes are color-coded to match the tabs that the data is coming from. The reason you don't want to change the intake status is because this top box here will remain constant throughout the year. So that way you can always go back and see how many animals you took in during the months prior to the one you're reporting in. In the middle, you can see all of the outcomes. And then down below, I've included a section where it is unduplicating the volunteers that came in each month and the number of hours that they donated. And the same goes with the board member section, which is also unduplicating the board members in case they volunteered more than once in a particular month. And it's calculating all of the hours and money in kind donated for the board members. And then finally at the bottom is a tracking section for the number of events held as well as the amount of money in kind raised. And if you scroll to the right here, you can see that there's one section for each month of the year. If you go to print this and only want to print the month you're in, just select the page number that corresponds with that month. For example, page 1 is January, page 6 is June, so on and so forth. So finally, but last but certainly not least, is the annual data tab. This one includes some additional information that's not in the monthly tab. For example, in the top 3 boxes, this one and these 2, I have total columns so that you can easily use this data for your grant applications. I also have included a couple of boxes related to the spay and neuter and the medical expenses so that you can see how much was done throughout the year. By only entering in the amount of money you spent on medical expenses can help with grant applications for medical funding. Down here you'll notice on the right that I have a couple of purple boxes that are adding the money and in-kind that was donated from board members and events. This tab will be updating throughout the year so you can always check to see how you're doing. So one last thing before we wrap this up, I'm going to go back to the Animals tab. So when you get to the end of the year, you can filter this report for any animal that's not been adopted yet. So you just click on the exit date here, unselect all, and go down and just check the blanks and click OK. And so then these are all the animals that were not adopted and that are still in your shelter at the end of December. So what you would do is you would go back and find that original spreadsheet that was blank, that you saved the copy for this one, create a new copy for next year, and then copy and paste all of these animals into that new spreadsheet. That way you'll have all the data entered in for them already and you can move forward with the new year. These animals will not be counted as intake for the new year because they were already counted as intake for the previous year. But that way you will still be able to track their outcomes. If you have any questions about how to do that, please feel free to reach out. I hope you have found this video to be helpful and the spreadsheet to be valuable. Here's my contact information as well as a link to the Etsy store where the spreadsheet is available for purchase. I've also included a link below directly to the spreadsheet in my Etsy store as well. The spreadsheet is available for sale for only $49, but like I mentioned before, it's a one-time fee and you'll be able to use the spreadsheet year after year. Please reach out if you have any questions, and thanks for watching.